So first, I'd like to ask you to hit the subscribe, hit the subscribe button. I don't know if you're gonna like it or not. Hopefully you will, and at the end of the video, you'll hit the like button. But it'd be really nice if you hit the subscribe, and there's that bell thing that tells you when I make a video. You could hit that too. All right, so there is a person. I know I'm gonna say her name horribly wrong, so I apologize. Utepia abstract painting, Hutapea abstract painting, and he had made a comment about my process. And so for me, the process, number one, let's see, it's 8 o'clock. I've been sitting here for probably the last 2.5 hours staring at this canvas and talking to myself of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Okay? So that's part of my process. But what I kind of find fun about artists in general is the process of what they do. Their art ultimately is a process of where they came from. So myself, I don't like that. Myself, I'm 47 years old. Jeez. I'm 47 years old. And I've painted off and on my whole life. Oh, let's taco about it. That's rather fun. Let's taco about it. All right. So I've painted off and on my whole life. I never really. Oh, that's kind of a fun color. Really kind of got into it until probably the last few months. I've done ceramics. Ceramics was one of the things that I really enjoyed. There's just something about playing in the mud, and it's fun. I like ceramics. Eventually, I'm going to get to a place where I can do that too. It's kind of hard to do in a 500 square foot apartment. Anyway, so I've painted off and on. I sketchbooks upon sketchbooks of just random drawings of all sorts of stuff. And the process is, some of it's mostly been me getting over myself to actually do it. And so part of the process is getting there. But ultimately, what I find interesting about artists, the process comes from every single thing that has happened to me up until this moment right now. That's what the process is. It's your life, right? That's especially artists, because artists are the ones that are at least confident enough finally to actually put it onto a canvas and say, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I see. Because art in and of itself, sorry for blocking the camera, art in and of itself is a personal thing. I could have 1 million people see this and go, that is the ugliest, stupid thing that I've ever seen. And I might agree with them. Sometimes I probably would. But there's going to be somebody that's like, I really like that. So the process for me is just doing it. Most of it was getting here. It was getting to this point where I am now. And if you want to know part of where it comes from, where the art, where the, what the hell ever you want to call it, comes from, there's like 95 videos on this channel of me complaining about politics on the internet. And in some of that, in all of that, I mean, ultimately, in all of that, you're going to get my process, right? You're going to understand more of where this here is coming from, even if you disagree with me on politics. If you're willing to actually look and see, you'll start to understand where all the interesting stuff comes from. And it may be that I'm not even trying anything. It's just this is what came from what I see in the world over the last 47 years. And it's kind of a fun little process. But ultimately, it's my process. Everybody has their own thing that they do, thing that they talk about, whatever. You know, that's the thing that got them to where they are. That was the thing, you know, that's why you're where you are. Yeah. The artist's process is everything that happened to them up until the moment that they painted that painting. It's like Claude Monet. I kind of always thought, I just never understood Claude Monet for the longest time. It's like, they're pretty paintings, you know, it's like something you'd see like in a doctor's office or something. And then my mom had this book that was it was kind of like a coffee table book, but it was a coffee table book that was the life of Claude Monet. And I read that book, and I'm not much of a reader, but that was a book that I actually read. And after reading that, you start to understand where he came from. I mean, he was the literal definition of starving artists. Like, there's a lot of those famous artists that never were nothing outside of a very small group of people until they died. I mean, that's the joke. Artists are like healers. Nobody cares about them until they die. little World of Warcraft humor for you. So that's where, you know, like, you come to find out that Claude Monet was going blind at the end of his life, and that's where all of those weird water lilies of just messy colors, but you could tell there was something there. That's what he saw. That was his literal impression of the world. You were seeing what a blind man saw, and it's kind of a fun little, you know, like, stuff like that. Just, it's Pablo Picasso. I mean, when you start to learn, like, the story behind Pablo Picasso, he was an alpha male, and it comes through very much in his artwork. I always have liked Claude Monet. I've always liked Picasso. There's just something about that. Cubism was something, and some of those things that he did during the war, that was some pretty raunchy stuff. He was what an artist, you know, was back then, and still should be today. Outspoken, and I'm gonna talk. I don't care if you don't want to hear what I have to say. I'm still gonna say it. War, what's it good for? Absolutely nothing. Anyways, so what you will find, like Bob Ross. I mean, Bob Ross, you got decades of him doing shows, and you kind of get that where it comes from because you've watched enough of his show. Know that Bob Ross. You know, I have a friend, Q, looking at you, buddy. He had told me this. This is the first time I'd heard this. And he's like, what if all of those paintings were paintings of places where Bob Ross had killed somebody? And I was like, and I just I always think that it's like kind of funny. That's where the body is, right? And who knows? You don't know. And that's kind of the fun part, because it's totally like horseshit that's really what it is, but it's just fun to think about. There was this girl I knew in high school that talked about, he's like, just imagine Bob Ross, happy little grenades blowing up everywhere, and it's something. But I mean, I think he was a war vet, and that's, that shit fucks with you. So, my process is just me and me. So, what's your thing? What do you do? I sometimes find that I like the story behind the artist more than I like the art. And I get shit for that, but it's one of those things that I do not like Kanye West. I think his music is garbage. I'm sure somebody will tell me how stupid I am, but I like Kanye West. Like, he's a character that some of that music makes a little bit more sense, even if I don't really care for it. But it makes more sense when you kind of see the bigger story of him. This is the world we live in right now is a rather interesting world, because you're getting to see you're learning more about the artist. Like, back in the 80s, if you wanted to learn about Metallica, you literally had to like read Hit Parader magazine or Guitar Player magazine or some other, hardcore metal fanzine. And then there's this one interview with James Hetfield where he talks about X or Y, and then you're like, oh wow, that could be, then you start to learn more about where his stuff comes from, just instead of the music, right? And I love the music, but it's like sometimes it's fun. You want to know where that comes from. So that's the process. And that's just how I see it. Maybe it's like I was noticing I had taken my daughter to I had picked her up at her after school program, and the lady that works there was collecting all the kids' paintings, right? And it was just kind of cool, and I was mentioning to her that it's like, I love that about like kids' art. You see kids and they create stuff, and they have no like thought process in their brain that tells them good or bad or indifferent. So they're unfettered and they're allowed to just create. And it's always so much fun to see what they create, because it's that childishness of art that lets you be honest and just be honest. And that's what art's all about. It's your putting yourself, that's what this is. It's me putting myself on a canvas for you to see. This is my brain translating the last 47 years of shit that's happened to me onto a canvas, right? That's what you're seeing. That's the process. That's where we all as artists come from. That's where we all as humans come from. And really, we are all artists. It's there. It's inside of all of you. And it's just the will to actually do it. Now, if we lived in a world that YouTube wouldn't remove my videos for listening to music that might get a copyright strike, then you would also get another part of my process. It's the music. The music is one of those things for me specifically. I don't know about others, but there's been a lot of music that's influenced me as an artist for whatever reason it was. And it may have nothing to do with, yeah, I'm sure it has everything to do with something, right? Isn't that the process? So this is where it comes from. That's me, the person. That's where all of this comes from, right? It's like Bob Ross. I mean, go watch Bob. Go watch. There's a YouTube channel that all they do is play Bob Ross. It's like decades worth of Bob Ross. Let's see, where is that? He's sitting there. He'll tell stories, you know, what he did with his, you know, so and so and them and that and where it comes from. So, you want to know, that's what it is. I'm going to just sit here and talk. Sometimes I might talk about stuff that's important. Sometimes I might talk about stuff that is completely unimportant. And everything that comes out of my mouth probably has some relevance to what you're seeing on the screen. You know? Like if I say that Ron Paul is my spirit animal, you now know something more about me. And where this comes from. And that's the fun part. That's the fun part about this world that we live in now. Because I think I may have made this point that at one point I was considering going to school to get a master's in fine arts. Because I just thought, oh, it'll be, you know, I'll be an artist, right? And then it's like I sit down and the part of my brain, my father in my brain is telling me, you know, how the hell are you going to make money doing that? And at the time, it was one of those that I don't know. And maybe it was I just didn't care enough, that I didn't want it enough. And this is one of those things that I think you find out is once you want it, it's easier to figure it out. Like Buckethead. Buckethead is an amazing guitar player. And if I was willing to if I was willing to dedicate the next 10 years of my life to playing the guitar, I could probably get to a place where I'd start, you know, being at least where he was, say, 10 years ago. And I'm sure that I could do it if I put the time in, but it's one of those that I've come to realize the reason that I'm not Eddie Van Halen is I don't want to be. And I know that there's probably some parts of the guitar that frustrated me at the time because I was so focused on I want to be able to play it and make it sound exactly like James Hetfield. And I've only played it like 6 times. I mean, why don't I sound like James Hetfield, right? But ultimately, it was one of those that it's never been that thing. That wasn't the thing. I like the guitar. I think it's fun to pick it up and mess around. And eventually, when I get my own space that's like big enough where I can play the guitar, I'm sure there's going to be at least one video of me plugging my guitar in and making it just make a bunch of obscenely obnoxious sounds for 10 or 15 minutes talking to you about my process. Because that's the whole point of this. I did all of those videos because I wanted to be like Tim Pool. Not really, but really, kind of. More like Salty Cracker, except for I don't have Salty's, like, I don't know, charisma. He's got an over the topness. But I also don't totally fall in line with anyone's politics because I just don't fall in line because I don't fall in line. I see the world through my own eyes, and it sometimes frustrates me because it's like there's the people that you want. It's like, why can't you just see it this way? And so it's like you eventually come to the realization that none of those people speak for me. So this is the part that I think speaks for me more than me complaining about Joe Biden or Donald Trump or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Elon Omar. You will know, I'm sure that there will be times as this series goes on through its total existence that you'll hear more and more of it, because that's just one of those things that influences the thing behind the painting. That's just what I feel like there's something missing. What do you guys think? I like that. So, that's my process. That's where the artwork comes from. It comes from the politics that I listen to and care about. You want to get some of my understanding of my artwork, go follow me on Twitter. You want to see some of my cheeky reels, go follow me on Instagram. Go follow my channels on all of the platforms because you love me. I mean, if you've made it this far, you should hit the subscribe button. Be a boss, hit the subscribe button. It helps me in the algorithm, is what they say. Because I know that those 90 plus videos of me complaining about politics on the internet are not helping me in the algorithm. But I'm not starting over because ultimately those all come from, this comes from all of that. So that's what we say. I'm gonna call this Ron Paul is my spirit animal. So with that, hit the like and subscribe, share, comment, notification bell, and go out there and be the change you want to see in the world, and have a fantastic day.